Tyler Mackenzie had everything a man could want: money, land, purebred horses, and that cocky smile of someone who never had to truly fight in life. At 35, heir to a cattle empire in Texas, he thought the world revolved around his Italian leather boots and his $5,000 Stetson hat. That September morning, when he first saw Margaret Anderson at the cattle auction, he couldn't hold back his laughter. A 60-year-old woman, grey hair pulled back in a simple bun, calloused hands, and eyes that seemed to have seen more storms than any modern cowboy. "Look at this, guys," Tyler whispered loud enough for her to hear. "Looks like someone got lost from the nursing home." His friends laughed. Margaret didn't even turn her head. What Tyler didn't know was that this lost woman owned the largest ranch in the region, had built an empire from scratch after becoming a widow at 40, and was about to give him the greatest lesson in humility of his life. A lesson that would begin with a simple bet at that auction. And when it was all over, Tyler Mackenzie would never be the same man again. But would this transformation come in time to save not only his wounded pride, but also his ranch on the verge of bankruptcy? The answer lay in the hands of that woman he had so underestimated. Have you ever met someone you judged by appearances and later discovered you were completely wrong? That person you underestimated, who in the end turned out to be much stronger, smarter, and more capable than you ever imagined. The story I'm going to tell today is exactly about that, but with a twist that will make you rethink everything you know about power, respect, and second chances. You know that classic image from Western movies? The strong and powerful cowboy, the fragile woman waiting to be saved? Forget all that. Because in real life, especially in the world of big American ranches, there are women who build empires while arrogant men lose fortunes through sheer arrogance. And Tyler Mackenzie was about to learn this the hard way. Margaret Anderson was no ordinary woman. A widow, mother, grandmother, and owner of one of the largest ranches in Texas, she had stories that would make any modern cowboy look like a child playing Western. But Tyler, blinded by his own arrogance and privilege, couldn't see beyond the wrinkles on that extraordinary woman's face. Before we begin this incredible journey, I need your support. If you like real stories that show the power of resilience, female strength, and second chances, hit that like button now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any inspiring story like this. And in the comments, tell me, what country and city are you watching from? I love knowing where the amazing people who follow this channel are from. Oh, and one more thing. Have you ever been in a situation where you underestimated someone and learned a big lesson? Tell us in the comments. Your stories inspire other people who are going through the same thing. Now let's begin this story that will touch your emotions and change the way you see the world. The September sun beat down hard on the auction pavilion in Brewster County, Texas. The air conditioning fought bravely against the suffocating heat, while cattle breeders, farmers, and investors settled into white plastic chairs. Tyler Mackenzie arrived as he always did, late, loud, and surrounded by his equally arrogant friends. They laughed loudly, made jokes about the hillbillies present, and acted as if they owned the place. Margaret Anderson sat in the third row, with a worn leather folder on her lap and a notebook where she carefully jotted down the numbers of the lots that interested her. She wore a simple plaid shirt, faded jeans, and genuine work boots. Not those designer boots Tyler was showing off. Her face bore the marks of time, but her green eyes shone with a sharp intelligence that few could recognize at first glance. When Tyler and his group passed by her, the giggles began. "Seriously, someone should tell Grandma this isn't church bingo," Brad, one of Tyler's friends, commented. More laughter. Tyler looked at Margaret and added loudly, "Maybe she's here looking for a new husband, maybe a young bull." Laughter echoed through the pavilion. Margaret didn't move, didn't turn her head, showed absolutely nothing. She just continued making her notes in perfect handwriting, as if those men didn't even exist. But the auctioneer, Sam Douglas, a 70-year-old gentleman who knew everyone in the region, noticed the scene and shook his head negatively. He knew exactly who Margaret Anderson was, and he knew Tyler Mackenzie had just made a gigantic mistake. The auction began with the smaller lots. Tyler barely paid attention, scrolling on his phone while his assistants placed bids for him. He was only there for the main lot, a champion breeding bull named Black Tempest, valued at $500,000. Tyler had already told everyone that Bull would be his, that no one had enough money to compete with him, that it was just a matter of time until the animal was on his ranch. But when the auctioneer announced Lot 47, Black Tempest, something changed in the pavilion. Margaret closed her notebook, folded her hands over it, and leaned slightly forward. Her eyes fixed on the magnificent bull being displayed in the arena. Sam Douglas noticed, and a discreet smile appeared on his face. This was going to get interesting. "Let's start at $200,000, Sam announced. Several bids came up quickly, raising the price to $400,000. Tyler raised his paddle lazily when it reached $450,000, expecting everyone to give up. But then, for the first time, Margaret raised her paddle. $460,000, Sam announced. Tyler turned, saw who it was, and let out a loud laugh. "Are you guys seeing this? Grandma wants to play auction." He raised his paddle again. $500,000. Margaret didn't hesitate. $510,000. Sam's voice had gained a tone of excitement. People began to whisper. Who was this woman who dared to challenge Tyler Mackenzie? The bidding duel continued. Tyler began to get irritated. How could that woman have so much money? She must be bluffing. He raised it to $550,000, hoping to scare her. Margaret countered with $560,000. The temperature in the pavilion seemed to have increased 10 degrees. All eyes alternated between Tyler and Margaret, like in a tennis match. Tyler was sweating now. His pride wouldn't allow him to give up, especially to that woman he had humiliated minutes before. He raised it to $600,000, far above what he had planned to pay. The pavilion fell silent. Sam looked at Margaret, waiting. She maintained her calm expression, looked directly at Tyler for the first time, and with a clear and firm voice said, $650,000. The shock was immediate. Tyler went pale. That was his entire limit for the auction, and he had other financial commitments. Tyler felt blood rush to his face. How could he give up now? Everyone was watching. His reputation was at stake. But $650,000 was beyond his budget, and he knew it. His accountant had been clear. Don't exceed $600,000. Tyler looked around, seeking support from his friends, but they were as shocked as he was. Brad whispered, "Dude, she's not bluffing." Sam Douglas gave the final warning. $650,000 once, $650,000 twice. Tyler opened his mouth to make another bid, but the words wouldn't come out. His pride waged a violent war with his financial reason. "Sold to Mrs. Margaret Anderson for $650,000. The gavel struck the table. The sound echoed like thunder in the pavilion. Applause exploded. Tyler didn't understand initially. Why were people applauding? Until he realized that everyone there knew and respected that woman. Comments began to circulate. "She deserves it." Finally, someone put Tyler in his place. "The cattle queen still rules around here." Tyler felt something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine humiliation. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair, and stomped out of the pavilion. His friends followed in embarrassed silence. Outside, Tyler kicked the tire of his luxury truck and cursed loudly. "Who the hell is that woman?" Brad pulled out his phone and searched. What he found made everyone even quieter. Margaret Anderson wasn't just any farmer. "Dude," Brad read aloud, "Margaret Anderson, widow of James Anderson, took over the ranch when he died 20 years ago. At the time, the ranch was broke, full of debts. In 2 decades, she transformed it into one of the 5 largest cattle producers in Texas. Estimated net worth of $15 million, known as the cattle queen in the region. Brad swallowed hard. Tyler, you just challenged a legend. Tyler felt his stomach turn. 15 million? He who thought he was the greatest with his 3 million in assets had mocked someone 5 times richer and infinitely more respected. But pride was still too strong. Doesn't matter how much money she has, Tyler growled. She's still an old lady who got lucky. Probably her employees do everything. At that moment, Margaret came out of the pavilion. She walked calmly to an old but impeccably maintained Ford truck. Tyler couldn't resist. He crossed the parking lot in her direction, his friends trying to hold him back. "Hey, ma'am!" Margaret stopped and turned with a calm expression. "I think you got very lucky today," Tyler said with disdain. "I hope you know what to do with that bull. Animals like that need specialized knowledge." Margaret studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she smiled. But it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen hundreds of men like Tyler and knew exactly how to deal with them. "Young man," she said with a calm but firm voice, "when you were playing with your expensive toys and being spoiled by your parents, I was waking up at 4 in the morning to milk cows. When you were in college spending money on parties, I was saving a ranch from bankruptcy with these hands." She showed her calloused hands. "I know every aspect of cattle management," Margaret continued. "I know genetics, reproduction, nutrition, pasture management, financial control, and people management. Do you know any of these things, or do you only know how to spend the fortune your parents built for you?" Each word was like a punch to Tyler's stomach. People in the parking lot had stopped to watch the scene. Tyler tried to respond, but his voice came out weak. I know how to manage my ranch." Margaret shook her head. "You have employees who manage for you. I've seen your ranch. I know your numbers, your operations. You're 2 years away from bankruptcy if you keep spending more than you produce. But I didn't come here to give you free consulting." She opened the truck door. Before getting in, Margaret looked at Tyler one last time. "Young man, respect isn't bought with money or designer boots. It's earned with work, integrity, and humility. When you learn that, maybe you'll find real success." She got in the truck and drove away, leaving Tyler planted in the parking lot, feeling smaller than ever in his life. And that was just the first lesson Margaret Anderson would give him. 2 weeks after the auction, Tyler Mackenzie sat in his luxurious office, looking at papers scattered all over the desk. Red numbers dominated every report. His accountant, Richard, a 55-year-old gentleman who had worked with the Mackenzie family for decades, had that expression Tyler had learned to fear, the "I told you so" expression. "Tyler, I can't be any clearer," Richard said, taking off his glasses and rubbing his tired eyes. "If you don't make drastic changes in the next 6 months, the ranch will be in serious trouble. Expenses are 3 times higher than revenue. You have too many employees doing too little work, expensive equipment being underutilized, and your investment decisions have been questionable." Tyler pushed the papers away angrily. "My father built this ranch from scratch. I won't be the one to destroy his legacy." Richard sighed heavily. "Your father built this ranch with hard work, smart decisions, and a lot of economy. You're doing the opposite. He woke up with the sun and slept with the stars. You wake up at noon and spend nights at parties." The truth hurt more than Tyler wanted to admit. The following days were a nightmare. Tyler tried to implement cuts, but his lack of real knowledge about the ranch's operations sabotaged every attempt. He fired the wrong employees, kept the incompetent ones who kissed up to him, and made decisions that only made things worse. His arrogance prevented him from asking for help, and his pride wouldn't allow him to admit he didn't know what he was doing. That's when Tyler began to hear stories about Margaret Anderson. In every bar, store, and farmers' meeting, her name came up. How she had saved 3 neighboring ranches from bankruptcy with her consulting, how her employees were the best paid and most loyal in the region, how she constantly innovated, implementing sustainable techniques that increased profits and protected the environment. Tyler heard all of this and felt a mixture of envy and growing curiosity. One night, drunk after another frustrating day, Tyler did something he never imagined doing. He got in his truck and drove to Margaret's ranch. The Green Valley Ranch was impressive even under the dim moonlight. Well-maintained fences, uniform pasture, modern but functional facilities. Tyler could see, even in the dark, that this place was managed by someone who truly understood the business. He stopped at the entrance, seeing lights on in the main house. It was 11 at night, but Tyler saw Margaret's silhouette through the window, working on something. His first instinct was to leave. What did he think he was doing there? But then he remembered the red numbers, the mortgage foreclosure threats, his father's legacy slipping through his fingers. He got out of the truck. Tyler knocked on the door. Firm steps approached, and Margaret opened, wearing a simple robe, reading glasses on the tip of her nose. She didn't seem surprised to see him. "Tyler Mackenzie," she said simply. "It's 11 at night." Tyler swallowed his pride, or what was left of it. "I know. Sorry for showing up like this. I need help." They were the hardest words he had ever spoken. Margaret studied him for a long moment. Tyler expected to be sent away, to be humiliated again. But then she stepped aside. "Come in, there's fresh coffee in the kitchen." Tyler felt enormous relief. He entered a house that was the opposite of his mansion, simple, functional, but full of human warmth. Family photos covered the walls, cattle trophies shared space with grandchildren's drawings, and everything had that smell of a real home. In the kitchen, Margaret served coffee and sat at the table, indicating a chair for Tyler. "So," she said directly, "your ranch is sinking and you don't know how to save it." It wasn't a question. Tyler nodded miserably. "Richard, my accountant, says I have 6 months, maybe less." Margaret took a sip of coffee. "Richard has always been honest. If he says 6 months, it's probably 4. Tyler felt panic tighten his chest. I don't know what to do. I tried cutting costs, but it only got worse. I tried increasing production, but the numbers don't make sense. I thought I knew how to run a ranch, but—" His voice failed. Margaret saw tears in that arrogant man's eyes, and for the first time she saw not a cocky cowboy, but a lost boy who had never learned to be a real man. "You'll start Monday at 4 in the morning," Margaret said, without beating around the bush. Tyler blinked, confused. "What?" Margaret stood up and began washing the coffee mugs. "If I'm going to teach you to save your ranch, you'll learn the right way. My way. That means waking up when I wake up, working when I work, learning every aspect of this business from scratch. No complaints, no privileges, no quitting." Tyler felt a mixture of relief and terror. You'll help me? After how I treated you?" Margaret turned, drying her hands. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for your father's legacy. James Mackenzie was a good man, a man of honor. He doesn't deserve to see his life's work destroyed by a spoiled son. But this is your last chance, Tyler. Either you change now, or you lose everything." On Monday, at 3:45 in the morning, Tyler's alarm went off. He had been drinking the night before, and every cell in his body screamed to keep sleeping. But something had changed in him. He got up, took a cold shower, put on real work clothes, not his designer clothes, and drove to Green Valley Ranch. Margaret was waiting, already in boots, holding 2 coffee thermoses. "Late," she said when Tyler got out of the truck. He looked at his watch, 4:03. "It's 3 minutes." Margaret started walking. On the ranch, 3 minutes can mean the difference between saving a sick animal and losing it. Punctuality is respect. "Let's go." Tyler followed her, realizing this was going to be the hardest experience of his life. The first days were brutal. Margaret put Tyler to do all the manual labor, fixing fences under the scorching sun, cleaning stables, feeding animals, carrying hay bales. His body, accustomed to luxury gyms and planned exercises, screamed with real pain. His hands, which had never known hard work, filled with blisters that burst and bled. But every time Tyler thought about quitting, he remembered Margaret's words, "Last chance." But Margaret wasn't just punishing Tyler. While he worked, she taught. She explained why each fence needed to be at a certain height, how cattle nutrition affected meat quality, why pasture rotation was crucial for sustainability. Tyler discovered there was an entire science behind what he thought was just raising cows. It was genetics, veterinary medicine, agronomy, administration, all together. After 2 weeks, something began to change in Tyler. He woke up before the alarm, eager to learn more. He began asking intelligent questions. Margaret noticed the change and began trusting him with more complex tasks. She took him to meetings with veterinarians, taught him to read genetics reports, showed financial spreadsheets, and how to make decisions based on real data, not guesswork. One afternoon, working side by side fixing a water trough, Tyler finally gathered the courage to ask something that had bothered him since day one. "Margaret, why are you really doing this? You don't owe me anything. Actually, I was horrible to you." Margaret stopped working and looked at the horizon, where the sun was beginning to set over the green pastures. "When my husband died," she began with a soft voice, "I was lost. James had managed the ranch for 30 years. I helped, but he made all the important decisions. Suddenly, I had a bankrupt ranch, creditors at the door, and 2 small children to raise. Everyone expected me to sell, to give up." She paused, the memories clearly painful. "A man named Roberto Sanchez, a neighboring farmer, helped me. Roberto taught me everything," Margaret continued. "He spent 2 years training me, guiding me, supporting me when everyone was betting against me. He never asked for anything in return. When I thanked him, he said, 'Margaret, don't thank me. When you succeed, help the next person who needs it.' So that's what I'm doing, paying it forward." Tears glistened in her eyes. Tyler felt something break inside him, the last barrier of his childish pride. Tyler stood up and did something he never imagined doing. He hugged Margaret. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice choked. "Sorry for being so arrogant, so disrespectful, so stupid. You're one of the most amazing people I've ever met, and I was too blind to see it." Margaret returned the hug. "I accept your apology. Now let's get back to work. These cows don't feed themselves." 3 months later, Tyler Mackenzie was unrecognizable. The arrogant man who entered the auction pavilion had been replaced by someone humble, hard-working, and genuinely interested in learning. His hands, once soft, now had honest calluses. His body, once maintained by personal trainers, was now muscular from real work. But the biggest change was in his eyes. Where there had been arrogance, now shone humility and wisdom. With Margaret's guidance, Tyler began implementing revolutionary changes on his ranch. He fired the incompetent yes-men and hired truly qualified people, recommended by Margaret. He implemented proper financial management systems, cut unnecessary expenses, and invested in areas that really mattered. He began waking up at 4 in the morning, as Margaret had taught him, and working side by side with his employees. The results began to appear. In 3 months, Tyler's ranch reduced its losses by 60%. In 6 months, it was beginning to turn a profit again. Richard, his accountant, couldn't believe the transformation. "Tyler, what happened to you?" Tyler smiled, a genuine smile, not that arrogant smile from before. "I met someone who taught me what it means to be a real man." But the real test came when the region was hit by a severe drought. Many smaller farmers were desperate, without resources to buy extra feed or implement irrigation systems. Tyler, who before would have ignored their problems or even mocked them, did something that surprised everyone. He organized a mutual aid cooperative, inspired by Margaret's example. He shared his resources, negotiated group agreements to reduce costs, and offered free consulting based on everything Margaret had taught him. Farmers who once despised him began to respect him. Tyler discovered that helping others not only was good for the community, but was also good for business. Strong partnerships created a support network that benefited everyone. One day, Tyler received an unexpected phone call. It was the cattle auction organizer, Sam Douglas. "Tyler, I have a proposal for you. The Cattle Breeders Association is looking for someone to give lectures on ranch management to young farmers. Margaret suggested your name." Tyler almost dropped the phone. "Margaret suggested me?" Sam laughed. "She said you had the most impressive transformation she's seen in 50 years of cattle ranching." Tyler accepted immediately. His first lecture was difficult. He was honest about his mistakes, about his arrogance, about how he almost destroyed his father's legacy. But that brutal honesty resonated with the audience. Young farmers struggling with similar pride and arrogance saw in Tyler a mirror and a hope. If he could change, they could too. Margaret watched Tyler's first lecture from the back of the auditorium. She saw the arrogant young man transformed into a respectful leader, a man who used his failures to teach others. When the lecture ended, Tyler looked for her in the crowd. He found her in the back with tears in her eyes. "You did this, Margaret," Tyler said. "You saved me." Margaret shook her head. "No, Tyler. I just showed the way. You chose to walk it. This change is yours." Months passed, and Tyler's ranch not only survived, but thrived. He implemented sustainable practices that Margaret had taught, created training programs for his employees, and built a reputation for integrity and competence. But Tyler never forgot where he came from and who helped him get there. Every Monday, without fail, he woke up at 3:45 and went to Green Valley Ranch to work with Margaret and continue learning. The relationship between them had evolved from student and teacher to something deeper, a genuine friendship based on mutual respect. Tyler became like a son to Margaret, and she became the mentor and mother figure he never had. They worked together, laughed together, and Tyler learned that true wealth wasn't in a bank account or prize bulls, but in meaningful relationships and living with purpose and integrity. One year after that fateful auction, Tyler organized a special event. He invited all the farmers in the region to a ceremony at his ranch. When everyone was gathered, Tyler climbed onto a makeshift stage and asked for silence. "A year ago," he began, his voice firm but emotional, "I was an arrogant idiot who thought money and ostentation were synonymous with success. I'm here today because an extraordinary woman gave me something I didn't deserve, a second chance." Tyler called Margaret to the stage under thunderous applause. She climbed up, surprised and clearly emotional. "Margaret Anderson," Tyler continued, "you didn't just save my ranch. You saved my life, my soul, my future. You taught me that true power doesn't come from dominating others, but from empowering others. That strength isn't about how much you can endure alone, but about how many you can lift up with you." People began to get emotional. "That's why," Tyler said, revealing a bronze plaque, "I'm establishing the Margaret Anderson Mentoring Program for young farmers. I will donate 10% of my ranch's annual profits to train the next generation, the same way you trained me. Because you taught me that success without meaning is empty, but shared success multiplies infinitely." The ovation was deafening. Margaret hugged Tyler, crying openly, and whispered, "James would be proud of you. I'm proud of you." The story of Tyler Mackenzie and Margaret Anderson teaches us something profound about judgment, transformation, and redemption. How many times do we look at someone and make assumptions based on age, appearance, gender, or any other superficial factor? How many opportunities to learn do we miss because our pride blinds us to the wisdom around us? Tyler almost lost everything because of his arrogance, but he had the humility at the right moment to recognize he needed help, and the courage to accept that help from someone he had disrespected. Margaret, in turn, shows us the power of compassion combined with strength. She didn't need to help Tyler. It would have been perfectly justifiable to let him fail after how he treated her. But she chose to see beyond his behavior, recognizing a lost young man who needed guidance, not condemnation. And by making that choice, she not only transformed one life, but created a ripple effect that touched an entire community. True strength isn't in dominating others, but in lifting them up. True power doesn't come from material wealth, but from shared wisdom and genuine relationships. And true transformation only happens when we recognize our faults and have the humility to learn from those who, in our ignorance, we may have underestimated. Tyler learned this the hard way, but he learned. And now he passes that knowledge forward, creating a legacy that honors not only his biological father, but also the extraordinary woman who showed him how to be a real man.